Hi guys, Craig here. Welcome to another edition of the podcast, Tell Craig Your Story. Today's guest will be Emily Peachey. Emily is from Virginia in the US. She's a Hollywood actress. She's been in movies such as Fishbowl, The Fault in the Stars, Abduction, Step Up, He's Just Not That Into You. And more recently, the premiere of Paradise Lost, which will be tonight. So I hope everybody gets a chance to see Emily in her role as Lisa Sampson. But before we go, please go to our Facebook page. We are on Twitter, Instagram, and all the social medias. Just search for Tell Craig Your Story. We've got a Linktree link, and we're on Apple iTunes, we're on Spotify, Google Podcast, to name a few. All right, so here we go. Here is my chat with Emily Peachey on Tell Craig Your Story podcast. Hi, Emily. How are you doing today? I'm doing good, thank you. Thank you very much for your time. What time is it now in LA? Roughly 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
Roughly 6 o'clock?
A little after 5.
Well, after 5, okay, excellent. Okay, so it's very good timing. So firstly, Emily, before we sort of start going into your career, I just want to ask about the coronavirus and what's happening in America. Are you staying safe?
Yes, I haven't really been, we've been social distancing here for a couple weeks now. It's kind of become the new norm, which is a little crazy, but yeah, we're all kind of staying inside. It's definitely different seeing, I was actually running the other day and Sunset Boulevard was completely empty, and that's something that you would never normally see, not a car in sight. So it's definitely weird seeing major streets empty, but yeah, everyone's staying safe and hopefully continue to do so. So yeah, we can all get this moving forward.
And is it getting better over there, or can you see any difference at the moment?
I think California has done a great job handling it, and I think probably by the end of this week we'll see for sure if it's improving, but it seems to be. I don't know if I'm just being overly optimistic, but
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah, it's just funny. I'm seeing things all over the world how toilet paper is a priority over all these other.
We have toilet paper. Like, none of our grocery stores ever have toilet paper. I was actually looking for paper towels the other day,
Right.
and I couldn't find any. And somebody was like, "You should try the gas station." And I went to the gas station, and there was nothing there, and some girl came up to me and just whispered, and she was like, "Try the dollar store." I'm like, it's so crazy that we have to do this over toilet paper, giving me some big secret. And it was definitely funny.
Yeah, it's just crazy how that's the priority over medicine and all different.
Yeah, it's definitely nuts.
Yeah. Okay, Emily, Hollywood actor. You've done journalism. You've been part of ads, TV series, movies. Let's start off with your current one. You've currently finished Paradise Lost. Is that correct?
Yes, we have finished filming, and it comes out on April 13th on Paramount Network.
Right. So does that come out also in Australia as well? I'm sure we'd get a feed there, right?
About the international market, I'm actually not sure on that, but I know that it is coming out in 5 days, and I am so excited about it. I cannot wait.
And how did you get involved with Paradise Lost? I mean, it's been going for such a long time now. How did you get involved in that?
So I auditioned for it last year for, I think, a one-episode guest star, and it actually turned into a recurring role, which
Yes.
I'm grateful for. So yeah, when I was going into it, I didn't know that the role was going to be quite as big as it was, but so grateful that I'm part of it and that the role developed into what it did, and I think it's going to be a really special show.
That's great. That's excellent. Do they have plans to do another series next year? And have they had any sort of talks of doing that next year with you?
I don't know. With the whole coronavirus thing, everything's been kind of put on hold.
Gotcha.
So it's definitely funky in the entertainment industry right now, just because everything did come to a screeching halt. I actually booked another series right before that I'm supposed to be filming this week. That just got completely put on hold. So I don't really know if there's like any plans for season 2 yet, just because Hollywood's kind of shut down right now.
Has Hollywood had something like this ever before, but like this just totally shut everything down? Can you think of?
Seen anything like this. This is crazy. It's
Yeah.
completely. I've never seen an entire industry, and actually, many industries obviously shut down. But I've never seen entertainment, so many different aspects of it, closed. It's weird.
Yeah. And what are you doing now to still keep busy? Are you rehearsing lines? What are you doing to keep busy in this sort of period? Like, have you got online things that you can do?
Yeah, so I've done a couple, online like Skype and Zoom auditions, which is, kind of different, but getting used to now. I've been doing a little bit of motion for Paradise Lost,
Yes.
uh, as well as like learning my lines for the show that I was cast in just before the whole Corona thing hit. So, doing that, and other than that, doing a lot of puzzles, a lot of board games, cooking a lot, kind of what
Yes.
everybody else is doing, but. Yeah, it's definitely a different time.
And
Never
how
could have
is and how is your cooking, by the way?
I love to cook, so
Yes.
it's just kind of something that's fun for me to do, and I love to bake. I always have, so I'm really enjoying that aspect. Not really good that the gyms are closed, but that's a
And I also saw on like you're doing another thing online. It's called Cameo. So tell us a little bit about that. I'm sure that's something that you could do outside of while the coronavirus is happening.
Yeah, I mean that's actually kind of cool. That we have things like that, these like online outlets. So Cameo is so cool. They approached me last year about coming on board with that. But basically, fans can like pay to get a personalized shout out from any of their favorite stars, and the prices range from like 50 cents to several $100s, or I think even thousands for some
Yeah, right.
celebrities. Scroll through and pick like any of your favorite celebrities, and it's any category. They have like pro athletes, they have comedians, they have actors, they've got everything. And you can like shoot them a message and say, hey, can you give me a shout out? It's my birthday, whatever, and they'll do it. It's pretty cool.
Do you have any stories about any experiences having a shout out from you?
Sometimes I get really funky things, and I have to like look it up to make sure that it's not any weird, because sometimes people will be like, say this, and I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But okay. So
Uh,
I
so,
definitely have to do my research to make sure I'm not getting myself into trouble there. But nothing
so
too
sorry,
crazy yet.
sorry. Let's get into your sort of acting career. So tell me, at what age did you sort of realize that this is the sort of career that you wanted to do?
Well, when I was in high school, I really wanted to be an actress, and I was involved in theater, and I had, a local agent. I grew up in D.C., or right outside of D.C. in Virginia, and it was always a hobby of mine that I loved, and I, did a couple like little things in high school, like one episode of a TV show and plays and things. And then when I went to college, my parents really wanted me to major in something a little bit more practical, which I totally agreed with. So I majored in broadcast journalism and
Hmm.
communication, and I went to school in Pittsburgh at Duquesne University, and I did a couple acting things. I was in a movie called Abduction when I was in college, and did a couple things here and there, but nothing. It wasn't my focus when I was in college, and I actually, when I graduated, I decided to go to law school, and I started at University of Pittsburgh. And on my first day of law school, I got The Fault in Our Stars, and I dropped out on my lunch break and never went back.
Wow. Wow. You were all focused, ready to go to do law? Is that the career that you wanted to do, or is that something that you want to do in the future, or is that just off the cards now?
I've always had an interest in it, so I may do it in the future, but my reasoning behind it was that I can always go back to law school, and these opportunities to be in films and movie or television shows and things like that don't come around every day.
Yes.
So kind of had to jump on that while the iron was hot. So yeah, it might be maybe in my future, but right now I'm having fun just riding the acting wave.
Yes, yes. And you said before that Abduction, was that the first feature movie that you were in?
It was, and I was like a diehard Twilight fan.
Right.
And this was in like the height of the Twilight fame. And my scene was opposite Taylor Lautner,
Right.
Jacob in Twilight, and it was wild. To this day, that was the craziest set I've ever been on because people were just trying to get to him so badly that girls were just like lining the streets, literally just trying to get a glimpse at him. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen.
Okay. And did you have like a fangirl sort of moment with him?
Oh, I had the biggest fangirl moment. I didn't even know. That first of all, it was like my first movie where I had lines that was like a studio film, so I was already like a nervous wreck because of that. And then it was against Taylor Lautner, and as I got there, they were like, "Oh, he's gonna have his shirt off. Is that okay?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, I mean, that's totally fine, but like I might faint. Just letting you know." It was the coolest thing ever. It was, and he was such a great guy, and like was so nice to me, even though I had no clue what I was doing, and just a really nice person.
That's great. That's good. It's great to see you with you got pictures on the wall, I'm assuming, and all of a sudden you get to meet this guy that you see on the TV.
It was so surreal because I remember like dragging my friends to go see Twilight. Not really dragging, we all wanted to. We were all like in costume.
Yeah.
Going to see Twilight at midnight when we were in high school, and then I was like doing a scene with him. It was very surreal.
And another fangirl moment that I saw, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you got the opportunity to meet one of the guys from NSYNC. Is that correct?
Oh my gosh, Lance? Yes, Lance.
Yeah.
Yes. I think I may have scared him half to death.
How did that come about?
So I actually saw him. I'm like an expert celebrity spotter. I don't know why, but like I can spot them like a mile away, and I like it could be a huge star, or I could be like he was Guy in an episode of something a million years ago. Like I can spot them all. And my friend and I were coming out of a restaurant, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's Lance Bass. And I grew up with NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, and I was a diehard fan, and Lance was always my favorite. And
Right.
I just, I went straight back to teenage girl, or actually like sixth grade. And I was like, I have to get a picture. I literally beelined it for him. I probably scared him half to death because I was acting like a crazy person. But yeah, I definitely had a huge fangirl moment with him. And he was such a nice guy and like was great about taking a picture on the street, like as he was leaving dinner. And he was great.
Yeah, right. Speaking of music, did you go into any sort of music? Did you play any sort of instruments in your college day or growing up?
Horrible at absolutely every instrument ever. I don't know how you get this bad at every instrument, but I'm terrible at literally everything.
And singing?
Oh yeah, terrible. The closest thing I can do is I can play like hot cross buns on the recorder. That's like the extent of my musical ability. It's very
That's it. That's interesting. See, I throw it back to you now and go, well, how do you go about learning or so many lines, and being in pressure situations to make sure that you can do it right? How do you do that? Do you have a formula, or does it come just natural to you when you do that?
I've always had pretty good memory, and I think just my parents are both lawyers, and like growing up and like being around that, and starting law school and studying for the LSAT and everything, I have a pretty good memory, and I always have. But I think the more you do it too, like the quicker the turnaround is, and like the better you get at it, because like I used to audition like once a month, so I would really focus and like take my time learning the lines. But the past couple years, I audition several times a week, so I have to learn the lines very, very quickly, and I've just gotten really good at it. And it actually helps because you don't fixate on one audition so much. Back in the day, I would, go to an audition, and because I had so few, I would, wait by the phone for them to call me and wonder why they weren't calling me back and if I was terrible and, way over analyzing it. But,
Yes.
over the past couple of years, because I've had so many, I do it. And the second I get out of the room, I focus on the next one and never look back, which makes it a lot easier. So if I get the call back or if I book the job, it's a pleasant surprise. And I don't, worry about why I didn't get it.
And how do you go about doing that? Do you have like an agent? And then with the agent process, you watch Entourage, for example, and, they're very, very close to their agent. They're trying to book him the best. Just an example. But how did you go about doing that? Did the agent find you? Did you find them? How does that all work?
So I found my agent that I have currently. I've had several agents over the years, but one I've had for probably a decade now. And I think like the rapport is just so important.
Yes.
And if you have like a connection on just like a basic human level, I think that works so much better than just people who you barely know trying to get you jobs. So my agent that I've had for the past 10 years, I text them, they text me. We really go through, which roles are right for me and if it's worth my time to audition and if it's worth their time to submit me. And, if I have like a good chance at booking it or if they're just like, it works so much better than just, throwing actors at the wall and seeing what sticks. So I've gotten very, very lucky that I have like a close personal relationship with my agents, and it really does help with the booking process. And they really are, are fighting for you, not just from like a business standpoint, but like from like a friend standpoint. So that definitely helps.
Because I have, because you're saying that, I have like a couple of inspiring actors here in Australia, and going, they get their start here in Australia, and then, okay, let's go to the US, and it's like, it's this huge fish in a pond, They're just this small, minute person, and they've got to start no matter what they've done here in Australia. They're pretty much starting from scratch in Hollywood. Yeah, so you were just lucky to get that, like even at the start, and yeah.
Lucky that I got Fault in Our Stars like pretty early on in my career because it was such a big film and such a great film. So I was very lucky doing that. But I experienced a lot of the same things because growing up, I was always like the big fish in a small pond, acting wise, because people in Pittsburgh are not actors. That's not really a thing that people do.
Right.
And same thing in Virginia, when I was in high school, like people weren't actors. But then I got out here and every single person was an actor.
Yes.
And you definitely feel like a very small fish. And you go to auditions, and when I would go to auditions in Pennsylvania, there would be maybe 15 people in for the role, and here there were like 50,
Wow.
So it's definitely, you definitely have that feeling, and it does feel like you have to start from scratch.
Yes. And the one good thing that I've been to LA and Hollywood a couple of times, and I want to get your opinion about it as well, is that I would go to a bar, or I'd just go out, and I'd be meeting these people, and I could just sit at a bar, for example, and turn around and talk to the next person. And it's like, oh, you know what? I'm from Detroit, or I'm from, one of these smaller cities. I'm just trying to make it. I want to be a makeup artist, or I want to be a musician, or I want to be an actor. And to me, hearing about these stories and where they've come from, and just having a go and just trying to sort of make it in Hollywood, to me is so inspiring. And I want to get your opinion as well. Like you're currently living in LA. Do you get that sort of vibe as well?
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a transplant city, so I don't know many LA natives. A lot of my close friends here are not from here.
You're
Um,
right.
it is very inspiring because a lot of the people that I'm friends with or even just know, left everything to pursue their dreams, moved
Yes.
far away from their families, didn't take the course that they were necessarily like supposed to take, didn't take that normal path. to do something a little bit more outside of the box and that's not as normal in the town that they're from to pursue their dream. And I think that that's so cool and very inspiring.
Yeah, agreed. And I have one friend. He's just like, ever since I've known him, he just wants to do this. He will take any role. He will travel 2 or 3 hours to Sydney to do like just any sort of ad, or like a 5-second spot in a commercial. He'll go and do it. And to me, that's so uplifting and inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, to get far in this career, or even to become a working actor, you have to really want it, because it is really, really difficult. I mean, I've done the same thing. I've traveled across the country, been there for 2 hours to do a callback or whatever, and then flown straight back. It's definitely a lot of hustle, so you have to really want it. And I think the people who really do are so inspiring.
Yes, agreed. Now, in saying that, like, can I ask how long you've lived in LA for?
Yes, I've lived here for 5 years.
5 years, okay. And so the pressures of being in this sort of industry, how have you adapted to it? Like, obviously with the media, watching every sort of move. How do you adapt to that, to like the pressures of living in LA, and then having the career that you've chosen?
I think it is really hard, especially coming from Virginia and then Pennsylvania, where life is so different to coming
Yes.
out. It was definitely a huge transition at first, but I think having like a good core group of people around you just make it so much easier. The ones that, obviously support what you're doing, but, don't buy into the hype, don't criticize, don't care. I love that. And I think
Yes.
yourself with good people really keeps you level-headed. It takes you out of this crazy world, and just keeps you down to earth. And I love it. And I have such great people around me, and I have such a great family and such great friends. And I feel so lucky to have that.
Yeah, that's great. And is your family still in Virginia at the moment?
They are in Virginia, and this is the longest that I've ever gone without seeing them because of.
Oh, wow. And sorry. And tell me about growing up in Virginia. Did you say DC?
Yes.
Tell me about growing up in that area. I haven't been to Virginia. I've been to quite a few places in LA. Sorry, the USA. But tell us a little bit about growing up there, and what was it like?
Yeah, so I mean, I actually loved growing up in DC. It's a different vibe from LA, but it's definitely a very fast-paced vibe, and it's a pretty big city. I absolutely love that, and politics based, which is cool, and I love politics. I was actually a White House intern when I was in college, so I am very into politics. So I liked growing up in that environment.
Yes.
And like I said, very fast-paced, big city, just like here. So even though it is a different vibe, it was good coming from a big city to going to a big city.
That's great. And let's talk about that. So I saw a few pictures on your Instagram, and it says that you worked at the White House.
I did.
How did that all come about? That is an amazing experience.
Yes, that was an amazing experience, and it's actually the craziest story. So after my sophomore year of college, all of my friends were getting internships, and I hadn't gotten one. I didn't even think to get one yet, and I was feeling very panicked, and I was looking through Time magazine, and they had a list of the top 10 best internships to get, and I applied for every single one of them, and the White House called me back, and
Wow.
like a Skype interview and a phone interview, and then they had me come in for an actual interview, and they asked me to advise the president on foreign policy if I had 30 seconds. And I remember
Wow.
out of the interview, my dad picked me up, and I was crying in the car because I was like, I think I blew it. I don't even know what I said. I was so nervous. And they called me later that day and said that I got it, and I was very shocked.
My God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And And at the time, it was President Obama.
It was Obama, yes.
Yes. In my opinion, I mean, we get bombarded by the American media here in Australia. I really think that he did a good job. People have their doubts about him, but in my opinion, I think he did a very good job from when he first started. He had to clean up a lot of, to where he left the country. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yes, I mean, I think he did a great job. I think he is a very poised human. I think he is the most incredible. I just try to take notes because I think he's just so incredible.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I think that I mean, my experience was nothing but amazing.
Yeah, right. And maybe you don't want to comment on this, but what about the current president, the Trump? Do you have an opinion on Mr. Trump?
Well, I mean, everybody has their opinions. I think
Yeah,
being
that's
the
right.
president is such an incredibly hard job that, I don't know. And seeing it
It,
firsthand, I would never want the job.
yes.
So you could not pay me enough to take that role. So
It's very easy to, they're a very easy target to say, to criticize, but
yeah.
I think they're doing quite a good job in that sort of situation. So let's go back to your movies and your TV. Do you prefer movies or do you prefer TV, on stage like drama? What do you prefer? What is your preference?
I always thought that I wanted to do movies, but after having done a series, I would much prefer a series because you're on it for longer and there's more of a rapport between like the cast and the crew, and you get more acclimated to the location, so you become a little bit closer with your castmates and everything just feels more natural and everything flows a little bit more smoothly when you're on a TV show. Also,
Yes.
it's like the closest thing. I like a schedule. I like having a schedule, and it's pretty close to a 9 to 5 job by entertainment standards. So I really like that. It's not like 3 months on location and then you're back to looking for a job. It's a little bit more long term, and you work like a 5-day week schedule, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, right. And I wanted to bring up, like you have quite a long list of TV series that you've been a part of, Sons of Thunder, The Adventures of the Velvet Prozac. But the one that stood out and one that I'm a big fan of is Veep,
Yeah.
the HBO series Veep. How did that all come about? Did you can you tell me like about that experience?
Yes, I am a big fan of Veep.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
and I just think it's so brilliantly written and so well done. So actually, when I was on Veep, I had the flu,
Oh
and
no.
no, it was awful because like I'm a fan, like I'm actually like a fan of the show. I love it. And when I got there, I was like in my trailer, and I was like, okay, you got to act like everything's okay because you're on Veep, so you cannot like anyone think that you are sick. So I would just be like sitting in my trailer, like willing myself not to like feel bad anymore. It was a great experience. Everybody on the show is just so fabulous and
Hmm.
so talented and so funny. And yeah, I loved watching that show and I loved being on that show.
Did you get a chance to talk to Julia Louis-Dreyfus?
I did, yes, and also Gary Cole, who's like one of my favorite actors growing up.
Nice.
I think he's just so great and so talented. Yes, so I got to interact with both of them, and also Anna Chlumsky. I had a scene with her, and she's absolutely great and so talented, and in one of my favorite movies when I was growing up as well. So yeah, the whole experience was just phenomenal.
That's great. I just like even go back further with Seinfeld. It's one of my favorite. I can watch a Seinfeld episode now and still laugh at it. And it's like nearly 25 years old. But I just think the Veep one as well. It's just continuing to go on. Like I thought it was going to be a short term, but now they're like maybe 6 or 7 seasons into it. I mean, that's
And
is
like
it?
Julia Louis-Dreyfus has had such an amazing career. Like her
Oh,
career is exactly what I want to have because she's had like 3 major series,
yes.
and I mean that's unheard of in Hollywood. It's insane if you get two, and she's
Yeah.
had big series, and huge movies like Christmas Vacation, like classics. So her career is just incredible.
I just saw actually recently, before that all got shut down, her movie with Will Ferrell, a comedy, of course. So yeah, she's doing a great job. I'm big fan of Julia Louis-Dreyfus. So yeah, let's getting back into the movie. So Abduction was your first one. So let's talk about Fault in the Stars. Like, this was huge when it come out. Very, very, not only in the US but in Australia. And I remember watching it, and it was like, I'm trying not to cry. I'm trying not to cry, but my God, a tearjerker. How did that all come about with your part as well? And tell me about that.
It was a very weird thing in my life because I auditioned for it the week that I had my law school orientation, and I thought that the law school orientation was going to be something that was going to change my life. I was going to go to law school, and that was the path I was going to be on. And then this audition that I went to after my orientation ended up changing my life completely. But yes, I auditioned after my law school orientation for Girl, and I got called back for Monica, who was Nat Wolff's girlfriend in the film, and I ended up booking it. And I had no idea how big this movie was. So I got off the phone with my agent, and she was like, Em, this is pretty big. And I was like, really? And she was like, oh yeah, it's like really big. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I should read the book. So I remember going to Barnes and Noble, and I asked the guy, I was like, oh, do you have this book, Fault in Our Stars? And he took me to this section, and they had t-shirts and necklaces and calendars. And I was like, wait, okay, I think this is a big deal. I think this movie might be big. And it was honestly the greatest experience of my entire life.
And the cast and crew, it just seemed that that it worked so well, and for them to be able to play someone that is dying as well, it just you could just feel that it felt very natural. Do you agree with that?
I completely agree. I think Ansel Elgort gave the performance of a lifetime. I think he is absolutely fabulous in that movie. I think Shailene is fabulous in that movie. I think you love the characters so much. You just fall in love with Augustus Waters and feel Hazel Grace's pain.
Yes.
John Green is a brilliant writer, and I think Josh, our director, did such a great job bringing it to life. The soundtrack is perfect. The colors are perfect. The mood. I mean, I think that movie is absolutely perfect. I think it is a masterpiece.
Agreed. You can laugh, you can cry, you can be angry, you can be sad.
I feel every demographic, because when I first did it, people were like, oh, it's going to be a chick flick. But then, a lot of my guy friends ended up loving it. And my grandparents went to see it. My parents love it. And, all of these different demographics. I was looking in the theater one day, and I was like, there are people of every age. There are guys and girls. It's a date movie. It's a girls' night out movie. It's everything.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. And let's go back to that. You're saying that your parents. So I've noticed on your Instagram that you're very, very close to your mum and dad, and same with me, very, very close. So were they big influences on you starting that? Were they, very, very encouraging? Were they trying to steer you into law? I do believe you said before that they both work in law. So were they trying to steer you in that path, or they were just happy to whatever makes you happy?
They have been extremely supportive the entire way. I think at the beginning, because it was so out of the box, they definitely wanted me to have a fallback plan in case it didn't work, because it is a long shot, and especially when you come from Virginia, and it's definitely not something that people pursue often. At the beginning, they definitely wanted me to have a fallback plan, and are both lawyers. They didn't really push me into law. It was just something that I was around, and when you graduate from college and you don't really know what you want to do with your life, I was like, this seems like the natural next step.
Yes.
Just I had grown up around it, but yes, when I did drop out on my lunch break, I told my mom, and then I was like, can you tell Dad for me, because I don't want him to see that. So she had to tell my dad.
Yes. Yeah,
But
they're the scary ones with the father. But had something a little bit similar. It was like I ended up moving to Shanghai, in China, to do work there, and it's like to tell Dad. It was like, yeah, I'm gonna move to Shanghai. What?
yes, I was fortunate enough to have gotten my mom's voicemail. So I dropped out on my lunch break and I was like, "Hey mom, it's Em. Just want to let you know I dropped out of law school and hope you get this message soon." Yeah,
And what was your father's response?
at first he was a little skeptical, but well, first when he saw like how successful the movie was, because I was like, this is going to be huge. Go to Barnes and Noble; they've got calendars, so it's going to be big. But he's very supportive now, and they've been great. They're the best people in the entire world, and they've been so supportive every step of the way. Even though I have like this crazy lifestyle that's not really the norm.
Right. And did you follow any sort of sporting teams there as well? I've noticed that you've been to, the NFL, like the football over in the US as well.
Yes, I mean I love the Steelers.
Hmm.
So I went to school in Pittsburgh. Everybody in Pittsburgh is just diehard Steelers fans, so you kind of Steelers fan. But I love the camaraderie of the city, and I love how passionate they are about their team. And it's such a fun place to go to any kind of game, to go to a Pirates game, to go to a
Yes.
Steelers game. It is just a whole nother level of passion. And Pittsburgh sports are just the best. I absolutely love them.
And also, one of the things that I noticed in the US is the major league sports. Yeah, yeah, it's really cool. They're professional athletes. They're on the big dollars. But what I found interesting was that the colleges, the college sort of sporting, is more popular. Like I would go into a bar and they'd have like 10 or 12 different screens, and they'd be all categorized into what university they went to. And
Yeah.
they were so passionate as well. So did you have that same vibe with your university?
Yeah, I mean, I like sports weren't huge at my school, but I definitely love college sports, especially college basketball. And it's such a shame this year that there's no March Madness, because I get so into that and doing the bracket and
Right.
everything. It's so much fun, and obviously that's not happening this year, and that's something I really miss. I was actually just telling my parents how much I'm missing that this year. But yeah, college sports are a big deal because people are so passionate about their school, and it's nice to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not 100% sure, but they don't get paid any money, like any salary, right? Like they're not on big contracts, the university students.
No, mm-mm.
So, and that's the sort of like the big debate that whether they should be paid or But I think that's just such a good thing that they all have to go to college and then they get drafted into the major league. They don't do that here in Australia, and then when they go into like a professional sport, then when they finish their career, what do they fall back on? So it's a bit like your parents as well. you know,
Oh,
what are
that's
your
really difficult.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like with the US, it's a great sort of setup how they, you have to go to college to then go into the major leagues, just in case, if something does happen, you get an injury or something. So in my opinion, that's a great. But I just thought that it was so great that they were so passionate about their university and their sports as well. Were you a part of like the cheer squad, or did you go, you just supported your university?
Yeah, I mean, sports weren't like huge at my school. I was a cheerleader, like I was a competitive cheerleader growing up, but I wasn't in college. But I was in a sorority in college, and I had a really good time. It was a very small school, but it was right in the middle of the city, so I really liked that feel because it was like a campus in the city, so it wasn't too urban, but it definitely had aspects of that. So was kind of the best of both worlds, and I absolutely loved where I went to school, and I fell in love with the city of Pittsburgh. It has so much character, and it feels very homey to me.
Yeah, yeah, and that's interesting with Pittsburgh. I've never been there, so I'm now it's on my list of next time I go over there. It's on my list to do. When's the best time to go there? Is it in summertime, wintertime?
I like the fall there. It's like football season, so everybody's, obviously very into that, and it's gorgeous, and it's not too cold yet, and the city's so pretty. It has so many rivers and bridges, and it's very picturesque. So has a lot of character. It's a great city.
Excellent. And speaking of which, with traveling, I saw on your Instagram again that you've been to New Zealand. Is that correct?
Yes. Actually, New Zealand, out of all of the places that I've ever been, is my favorite place ever so far.
Wow. Why is that?
I think it is gorgeous. It's probably the prettiest place I've ever been, and the people were friendly, great wildlife, very adventurous people, which I really like, very into extreme sports and things like that. So I had the best time. We did Australia, New Zealand.
Oh, you did Australia as well. That was my next question. Have you been to Australia?
I have. So we did that in like one trip. We took, a couple weeks and did that whole loop, and it was absolutely fantastic. I would love to go back to Australia. I actually auditioned for a show that was going to film in Australia, and that was part of the reason I wanted it. I was like, I just want to go back to Australia because it's amazing.
All right. Well, we seem to be getting quite some big movies now. We've got studios in Universal Studios in Brisbane, and we've got studios set up in Sydney as well. So I think the reason why they're coming down there is because it's a little bit cheaper to make. So the investors are sort of wanting to come down here. So tell us about your experiences in Australia. How long did you stay for, and what cities did you go to?
We went to Brisbane. This has been a while now, but we went to Brisbane, and we stayed for about 2 weeks, and it was absolutely gorgeous. I mean, so beautiful.
Did you get to pat a koala?
Yes, I got to hold a koala, and I'm like obsessed with baby koalas. Like, I want one so bad. Like, half quarantine I've spent watching baby koala videos, but I absolutely love them. And yes, it was like we did all of like the Australia things. We saw like the kangaroos, and like we did lines, and we did the zorbing, and all that kind of stuff. So it was fun. We had such a good time.
So with the cliche, like with everybody, not everybody, but some of the people in the US have this whole cliche that they see all the documentaries about Australia, and it's like, oh, with the spider, you've got all the spiders down there, and you've got all the deadliest snakes down there, and then I was telling people, just as a joke, that there's kangaroos jumping around everywhere in the streets, and like, oh really? Oh wow. That's amazing. I was like, no, it's not true. That's not true. So, what was the reason to come to Australia like in the first place? Was it always on your mind, or was just, hey, let's go to Australia and New Zealand?
It was just it was actually just, for fun, for vacation.
Yeah.
Never been, so it was a good place to go and experience, and I love to travel. My mom worked for an airline while I was growing up, so I traveled often. We always flew standby, so I could always just hop on a flight. I would often just like go to an airport and pick a city once I was there to go to. So it was kind of like the dream travel situation. So we got to do a lot of traveling.
And where else have you been to? Just quietly.
So I've been to many places in Europe. I've been to a lot of places: Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, everywhere in the Caribbean. I've been to every state except for Alaska. So making that my mission to get to Alaska shortly, just so I can cross it off the list and say, that I've been everywhere in the United States.
That's a lot of traveling. And getting back to living in LA, is that somewhere that you're comfortable living now? Do you have plans to go somewhere else, or LA is now your base?
Yeah, I mean, LA is pretty much my base now. I never thought I would be here for as long as I I was when I first came out here. I just got a sublease for like a month, and I thought that was going to be it for me, and then I would go back to the East Coast, but I just fell in love with it and made friends pretty easily, and it's just become my new home. And there's so much to do here that LA is one of the few cities in the United States that never gets boring. Like I've been 5 years, and there are still things that I haven't done, still places that I haven't gone, and like great restaurants, everything that's like big will come to LA one of the first places. So like any concert or any store or pop-up shop or whatever always comes here first, and I really like that.
I tell you what, yeah, that's exactly what I did. In LA, you just like what's on in LA, and it's just pages and pages and pages of just different things to do. And I also think that having someone there in the city, as with all cities, if you have someone there that's a bit of a local, that's been there for a while, can take you to the right places. I was the same. I just fell in love with LA. I really want to, just like you with Australia, I'd really like to get back to LA. And actually, I did plan, speaking of which, I did plan to go to LA 2 days before the lockdown in the US. I got a cheap flight. I was set to go on the 4th of February to see my friend Yasser. Yeah, and then on the 2nd of February, it was like, okay, if you've been in China in the last 2 weeks, you're not allowed to come into the country. And it's like, damn it. I'll get there eventually, but yeah, end up flying back home. So yeah, it was just such a shame. And then looking at all the things to do, there was so many things to do, and now they're all just shut down. So yeah.
Time to be here anyway. You're not missing anything right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. It would have been in isolation. So I just wanted to get back to one more movie, American Pastoral, that was recently. So tell us a little bit about that. Again, saw lots of pictures on there. I haven't seen it yet. I tried to download it like yesterday. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's based off of a book. It's very, very good, and it was really cool because it was Ewan McGregor's directorial debut, and I've always been such a huge fan of Ewan's. Growing up, he was in some of my favorite movies, like Big Fish, and he was Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's been in so many of my favorite movies, Trainspotting, all of those. And it was honestly a dream to work with him because he was, both directing and starring in it. So I got to see him in 2 different roles, and it was the most inspiring thing I've ever seen in my life because he was truly like a one-man show. He was, I don't know how you direct and star in a film. I feel like it is so difficult, and he did it flawlessly. And it was an all-star cast. I mean, it had Jennifer Connelly. It had Dakota Fanning. It was Rupert Evans. I mean, it was an amazing cast and a really good story, very deep, very interesting, and a very, very good movie.
Yeah, right. How do you walk in there and you see all these famous celebrities? How do you adapt to that? Come on, okay, let's stay professional.
With some people, it's really, really hard, and I think once you're around it more, it becomes a little bit easier. Like before, and I definitely started with my biggest crush, which was like Taylor Lautner in the height of Twilight. So I felt like that I could probably handle everything, anything that was thrown my way. But it definitely does take some getting used to because I look up and I'm like, oh my god, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Oh my god, wait, Emily, act normal, and they like introduce themselves and they're like, hey, I'm Ewan, and I'm like, oh, I know your whole backstory. I know everything about you. Come off like that kind of like major creep. So it definitely takes some getting used to, but I think practice makes perfect with that.
Okay, that's great. So let's sort of wrap it up here. So what is the future hold for Emily? Do you want to go into more of a directing role in the future? Tell us a little bit about that. What is the future for Emily?
I would love to continue to pursue acting for a little while longer, but later on down the line, I would love to direct, and I
Okay.
think it makes you a better actor when you know how to direct and vice versa. So it's definitely a role that I would love to do at some point. But right now I'm really happy with the acting stuff, and it's fun and it's truly my dream.
Yeah, right. Is it like directing in the future, acting, no law work, or just like that's just like an absolute backup, or
I don't know. I mean, I have so many interests that it's hard to say like what
yes.
I'll like decide to pursue on down the line. But it's definitely still in the cards. But right now, I really like the entertainment stuff. I really do.
I wanted to ask you, even with the coronavirus, sort of within this period, what do you have coming up in the future, like for roles?
So I actually got cast in a role in a show. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what it is yet. Right before this hit, I'm supposed to be filming it actually now. But everything kind of came to a screeching halt. So I don't know, when we're going to be picking that back up, but hopefully soon because it was a great role.
Okay, that's great. So Emily, is there anything that so to finish off, is there anything that you would like to promote, like social media or any upcoming events?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on all social media platforms. My Instagram is at Emily Peachey _. Not any events at the moment, just because of everything going on in the world. But yes, I am on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Yeah.
All right, so make sure everybody that you're checking out Emily's photos. She's got a bunch of photos on Instagram, and you can make sure that you can keep up to date with Emily with all her movies and even not just a movie, just everyday life as well. Thank you very much, Emily. I know you're a super, super busy girl, and really, really do appreciate your time. Make sure that you put Australia on your list to come back here, in the future. Yeah, good luck with getting that role in Australia as well. Try and make a holiday out of it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No worries, and good luck with all the future. And this is the reason why I like doing this podcast. It's inspiring people like you that have started out, and then you've worked your butt off. And actually, one more thing that I forgot to ask is, what tips would you give to inspiring actors that want to go in your career path?
Don't get discouraged. It is so easy in this business to get discouraged, and your break will come, your time will come. So many no's before you get a yes, and just keep your head up.
Be persistent.
Be persistent, definitely.
Yeah, right. All right, Emily. Thank you very much again. Have a great day. Really appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Bye for now.
All right. Bye-bye.